Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to a very special event series from Louder Pop Culture Podcast called Ranked and Reviewed, where we are actually ranking and reviewing every movie in the Scream franchise at the moment. And today we are reviewing and discussing Scream 2 after our long-awaited first episode last week. It was long-awaited by everyone, man. Everyone. I'm just getting my notes for the show that I took while watching the movie. And we're going to get started with a little bit of background on this movie. This is, of course, the sequel to the hit movie Scream from 1996. And surprisingly, this came out a year after the first one, which is not a lot of time in between movies. So, first of all, before we get into the movie at all and stuff, I want to get Alan's opinion. What do you think, man?
It was interesting. Like, I've always been a big fan of the second. Like, I think it was definitely the top for me. And hearing some of the things and reading some of the things before rewatching it, I was like, am I going to come out of this thinking the same thing? Especially after kind of what we touched on in the first. But I think it is still definitely up there. There's a lot of cool stuff there going on, especially considering the circumstance.
Yes. I think I've told you roughly kind of how I feel about some of this movie. Didn't go into depth. We kind of saved the conversation for this, but I feel like the first half of Scream 2 is really, really, really strong. All the way up and through after Cece's death, which is Sarah Michelle Gellar's death, all the way up through that. I think parts lose me. Parts I don't like at all, like when Sydney is doing the musical and she's surrounded by all the people, and I think that bit's shit. And I think also the climax was a bit weird, where she didn't go get help or something from somewhere. She went to the theater that's playing loud music coming from it. Weird choice, because if you're having someone chase you around that's a killer, and then you're running through the school and you're from the theater, you hear some music playing and it's late at night, I think that's the last place you head, in my opinion.
And this is also coming from the woman that's like, "Oh, run out the front door." In the last movie, it's like, well,
yeah, exactly. And you just run away from the school, like leave the campus grounds, you know. But some interesting things we want to discuss. So, like, first of all, I want to ask, did you notice anything through this movie, like the last one, that you found really intriguing or not? Because I've got a bunch written down here. What about you?
Oh, I've got about a page of just that kind of stuff as well. So I reckon we'll double up. Yep. There was a lot of it was interesting learning about it and learning about how my understanding is the script leaked, and originally Hallie was going to be one of the killers, and that
it's her roommate. Her roommate.
Yeah. And they didn't actually tell the actors who the killer was going to be. So a lot of people say, "Oh, you lose that whole dynamic that Stu and Billy had." But I found through Wes Craven being a brilliant director, and kind of it's still there, and I think it was put there to the actors probably very subtly, but once you know it's there, it's very, very, very apparent, and you kind of look back and you're like, "Oh, there's a lot of foreshadowing."
Yep.
Like, even from the very start, it kind of sets up, like, you got the two dudes pissing in the urinal when
has two of them.
The first kill happens, and it's like that foreshadows there's going to be two people again. And
that's one I forgot to write down, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and Dewey, he pretty much says it in the very start. He's like, could be him or her or both or something along those lines, and it's like,
Yeah, well, one of the things I thought was interesting, if we're talking about the starting of the movie, which I would say is weaker than the starting of the first movie in scariness, in tone, in everything. I think it's a lot weaker. But I do think it's really cool. I think it's a really cool opening to a movie. I just don't think it's the highlight of the series so far. I think the opening to the first movie is hard to beat. But what I think is cool is when he goes to the urinal to piss and goes in the toilet stall itself, and he hears the whispering from the next cubicle and puts his ear up. That right there tells you who did it, because what Ghostface is whispering is "Mommy, mommy, please, mommy, I got to show you, mommy, mommy," or something along the lines of that. So first of all, that's your second clue as to who is involved in this. And also, I don't know if you knew this, when they're lining up for tickets out the front, Mickey can be seen in the background getting out of a car. That car is being driven by Mrs. Loomis. You don't see Mrs. Loomis driving the car.
I did not notice that.
That's what you'll put together from noticing that Mickey's in the background getting out of a car. Who else is going to be driving him? How did he, when he does the kill in the cinema, and then she's up walking and he runs. He runs out the fire exit, runs around to the car that dropped him off, and they drive away. So you can only assume that Mrs. Loomis was driving that car. So that's a little interesting fact for people trying to keep an eye out. I don't know exactly how easy it is to see him. I can't remember. But I think it's not easy to spot him. But he is there. So that's, if you rewatch it, that's kind of giving it away. Even if you know the ending already, you're like, that's one thing I found really cool about it. What do you think about the overall, like, way this film came out? Like, I do feel like it was, when I first watched this, I never thought it was the boyfriend, because they did it the first time, even though the movie pushes you in that direction so often in this movie, where you're like, it has to be the boyfriend. But I feel like Randy gives away the entire ending as well. He says, "What about Mickey, that freaky film student?" He brings up the Mrs. Loomis thing. So, I mean, there's lots of sort of foreshadowing throughout this movie. And if you take enough notice, you can pick up on those things. What else did you notice, man? Because I got a few more to bring up as well before we go further.
There's some cool giveaways about Mrs. Loomis, especially in Randy's death scene. There's a lot there. Well, a couple of things, I should say. One thing, when he's getting stabbed in the van, you notice on the screen there's a reporter on screen. So it's kind of like it's a reporter. But one thing I noticed, and it's very easy to miss and overlook, and I noticed on his hand, when you see his body, kind of around his between his knuckle and his thumb, like his index finger knuckle and his thumb, is actually what looks to me like lipstick. It's still with all the fake blood, so it's easy to miss.
Interesting.
It looks like there's lipstick there. And Loomis was a nutter. I wouldn't put it past her to leave like a almost giving it away lipstick mark on there. It's like, I thought that was a nice touch. They're kind of two very big things there, going reporter, lipstick if you catch it. That was a big one for me. And I'm like, I see what you're doing there.
Something I'm starting to notice with these movies is it tends to be the person that is doing the most of the killing or whatever. It tends to be the person that's the most likable. Like, I really like Mickey throughout that movie. I think he's interesting, and I think he brings that sort of element, not as much as Stu from the first movie, but I feel like he brings that everyone wants to be this guy's friend feel. He seems like a decent dude.
He's got that chill niceness.
Exactly. He's like got that he just makes you feel like you want to be his friend too. So, like, that's something I'm going to look out for definitely in Scream 3, is like the people you like the most. Is that how it ends up being? Because I know who it is in Scream 3 already, I remember, but I want to take more notice next time and see if, like, that is the case. Because I almost feel like it might be the opposite in the next movie. I'm not sure, but I can't remember. We'll have to watch it again, but I feel like whoever it is in that movie is probably more unlikable than he is likable by most people. So I just find it interesting that, like, if you didn't pick up on who the killer was the first time you're watching this movie, you'll notice a pattern that you liked Stu, it became Stu. You really like Mickey, it's Mickey. You know what I mean? So, and I never expected it to be the reporter chick when I first watched it, Mrs. Loomis, because first of all, you don't know it's Mrs. Loomis. Her name's Debbie Salt.
Yeah.
So, and I think she plays like the annoying reporter that just won't go away, that wants to get the scoop, that's trying to be the next big thing really well. And you don't really take it as in like this woman's kind of weird and crazy, where that's what it is. It's she's crazy. She plays it off so well, just being a reporter that wants to get the big scoop, that you kind of goes over your head that could be even the person. I do feel like making it 2 killers this time again it's sort of what everyone expected. So it would have been nice for it to go either in a different direction with being 1 killer or even 3. But I think that they felt like they had to have a twist on a twist on a twist, just like they did with the first movie. And I also feel like that this movie is really good. It's great. It's a great Scream movie, but I also feel like it did suffer from having such a short development cycle.
Yeah.
I know going into this, quickly, before you go on, I know going into this that you said Scream 2 from memory was your favorite. Is that how you feel now?
I think it's very, 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 very close to now being second, but I think it's still just at the top. It's there's, I think, kind of thinking about it, it's like, I don't know how I'd feel if it didn't have the because it was rushed, if it wasn't rushed and it didn't have that lake, and they kind of recreated the same things, like the subtle hints where the people knew they were the killers. I don't know if I'll feel the same way about it if it tried to be the first movie again. So it did the same thing, but in a different way. And I think that in some ways to me has the charm for it because of that.
Yeah, well, the thing I'm disappointed about is it's a lot less interesting to find out who was behind the mask during each killing this time around, because majority of the time it is Mickey. And the 2 times that it isn't Mickey, I've got written down here, which is Mrs. Loomis kills Randy in the van. He clearly could have. The only answer you have of this is that why this makes sense is she was around the school reporting. She could have easily slipped in and out without even being kind of noticed. And also, Randy's talking shit about Billy just before she pulls him into the van. And I don't know if going into that scene, like, let's say if this was real life, if Randy didn't talk like that on the phone, I don't know if that's what would have happened to him at the end of that.
I reckon Gale was the mark there. And then he mouths off about Billy, and that's what got him killed.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but the shot of him getting stabbed is mirrored.
Oh, so, I didn't notice that.
It's mirrored, and it's supposed to be that I think she's supposed to be left-handed with the knife, but it wasn't. I think it was right-handed, but the image was mirrored to make it left-handed. And also the way Ghostface stabs in that, it's very, I'm not trying to say this in a stereotypical way, but it is a lot more girly-ish of a way of stabbing, because instead of being like big strokes, it was like,
you
know what I mean? And I'm right? Ghostface kind of looks at the camera for a second too, and then disappears. So I feel like that was showing us that killer was not really the one that was the threat, and that was sort of inexperienced, I guess. And
I could agree with that.
The other thing I find interesting is it's also her, Mrs. Loomis, that is chasing Gale through the sound booth.
Yep.
And throwing the chairs and stuff at the sound booth. That's all Mrs. Loomis. And
I noticed the grunt. The grunt gave that bit away to me.
Yep.
It's like in the stairwell in the first one. You hear the grunt when she throws the phone, and it's like, that was her.
Exactly. And also, that again shows her inexperience because she didn't actually get the kill. I'm pretty sure it was Randy that was setting up the footage of them as well. That's the other interesting aspect too, is that he's always carrying the camera around. Being a film student, you don't really take notice of that being sort of like a message to you, basically, because you see a lot of the time that the killer's filming what he's doing, but you never put it together that it is Mickey. And then you realize that it's from the same angle that Mickey was standing on and stuff when you really look into it and all that. So,
that's another one early on with Mickey.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. You go. I'll finish.
With Mickey, the exact same thing with the camera. I think it's the first press conference. Everyone's freaking out, but Mickey's just calmly filming, and it's like he's filming his handiwork. When you look back on it, it's like
exactly. And the other one is that I noticed is Mrs. Loomis is the one that's calling Cece while Mickey sneaks into the house because, and then Mickey throws her off the balcony. My reasoning for believing this is, number one, you see Ghostface sneak in behind Cece while she's on the phone getting spoken to by Ghostface. So it can't be the same Ghostface, which means it had to be one of them. And my reasoning behind it being Mrs. Loomis on the phone and not Mickey is I don't see Mrs. Loomis picking up Sarah Michelle Gellar or Cece and throwing her off the balcony. I feel like that's a very... That's sort of what they were giving away with that, is that it's a dude that has some muscle to lift. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that girls can't lift, so don't take it the wrong way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying from watching the movie, that's what I took from that scene. Like, is that how you felt watching it?
Definitely. And even the way he Ghostface kind of attacks her, it's very manhandling. And once again, not that females can't do that, but comparing the two, especially looking back on it and how she's in the van and isn't that kind of brutal, I agree with you completely. It's more something Mickey would do, and I don't think there's too much question with it.
So forgive me if I'm wrong here. Is she even a reporter? Or is that just a story?
My take is it's all made up. She's just a fake person, and she's acting like she's a reporter.
Okay, so what I'm trying to work out is she seemed to really want to get Gail Weathers, yeah? Do you believe that she was the target for her, but Randy got killed, and I believe she was chasing her through those sound booths and all that shit in that scene. So for me, I was trying to come to a reason of why she wants Gail so bad, and I was wondering if that's because she's a reporter and wanted to be the next Gail Weathers reporter, or if she was, I don't know what her vendetta is against Gail Weathers and why it's always Mrs. Loomis that's trying to get Gail Weathers. I feel like maybe that was answered in the movie and I just didn't notice it. But if she isn't a real reporter, I feel like that takes away the reasoning to why she just wants to get Gail Weathers so bad. So I don't know, like, how do you feel about that? Do you think let's have a quick look into it. Let's see if she is indeed meant to be a real reporter or not, because then that'll give us our answer. Hold on. Debbie.
I hadn't actually thought of it that way.
Yeah, it just seems weird that why would she be so inclined to get Gail Weathers on her, like, instead of letting Mickey get it. Debbie Salt is a local news reporter following the series of the murders. In the finale, she's revealed as Mrs. Loomis, the mother of Billy Loomis. She left her home. So it's got. It looks to me like she is indeed. It looks like she is indeed meant to be a reporter. That's what I'm feeling anyway.
Okay, well, there you go.
No, I've been corrected already. She poses as a local reporter. She's also the second arch enemy of Sidney Prescott. So there you go. My question about that whole it's Mrs. Loomis trying to get Gail is why. Like, I would love to know the reasoning behind that, because as we spoke about last episode, Wes Craven has a reasoning behind everything he does. So to me, there has to be sort of more of a answer to why she's so gung-ho to get Gail, and it's not Mickey that's trying to get Gail.
I'm not actually too sure. I didn't think too much about her motive. Maybe he was off story, off camera, I guess. Maybe the way that she wrote about Billy for the Stab movie, depicting him as a villain or something was wrong there. Because he always seems pretty precious when Randy has a go at him.
Yep.
So, I don't know, maybe he didn't like the way that it was told. Who knows?
Okay, so I'm reading here. Debbie hence is stricken with grief after her son's death. She had a makeover and meets a psychopath film student, Mickey, on his website. Mickey agreed to, which is a weird way. Wouldn't it just be like a sort of like underground dark web forum for people that are looking for that sort of thing? You know, it's kind of weird that you go onto this dude's website and he's just like, I want to kill people, which I'm guessing isn't the case on his website. Otherwise, everyone would know it's him. So how did it? And that's interesting. Anyway, it says Mickey agreed to execute a copycat killing spree of the original Woodsboro murders in exchange for guidance, tuition expenses, and to become famous from the trial. What he did not know was her intention of killing him afterwards to conceal her identity and frame him for all the murders. She then creates the alias Debbie Salt, a reporter for a local newspaper, who poses as a massive fan of reporter, author, and Woodsboro survivor Gail Weathers. So again, we don't really get an answer as to why. I'm just reading, trying to see if there's anything. Randy answer. Yeah, so yeah, I can't give you an answer to that. I just like to kind of look through with these movies. I kind of want to like dissect the motive of each killer. I totally get Mickey doing it for what the reasons he's doing it. Like that's a good motive, but it's also a little bit loose and flimsy too at the same time. Both of the people killing in this movie do not have a strong motive or reason to do it as the first movie. So in that way, I do feel like this movie falls a little shorter than the original in my books. You're saying it's still probably a little bit higher than the first, but I do feel like okay, this is my reasoning behind it. There is a lot less things that make sense for a reason in this movie like the first one. Like, how is Ghostface suddenly on the stage around Neve Campbell when she's rehearsing? Is that actually Ghostface around her? Or is that her imagining it like she originally imagined it? Because I don't think you see that person run off or anything. I'm pretty sure you just see her fall, and then the director's like, cut. Sydney, are you all right? Are you all right, Sydney? So, like, that doesn't make sense. That this guy was able to walk on stage in a Ghostface mask wearing the hood, try to get... What was the aim? You weren't going to kill Sydney in front of everyone there. That would have been a bit weird. Everyone would have caught you. And secondly, like, if you weren't going to kill her, why were you there to give yourself away? So my question, do you think that actually happened, or do you think that was an imagination that we just didn't get?
I reckon it was imagination. And that's another reason why I don't like it, because it doesn't go anywhere. It's like kind of trying to say, hey, she's losing it. But then it goes nowhere from there. And it's like, it's completely unnecessary. It's like, why is this scene here?
Yeah, so that's the kind of baffling bit. There's another bit too, which I'm trying to remember what it is. And that's, I mean, I totally get you. Not everyone in that cinema could have known that that was actually happening to the person in the theater getting killed for real. But like, this is a ballsy killer, man.
Mm.
To like walk into a theater, stab someone in the bathroom through the the portable, and then to walk out in his jacket, sit next to her, and then stab her. She gets up, and then you don't just run away the moment you stab her. You continue to stab her multiple times in the back. and then you run off. Like, I just think that there's a lot more about this movie that's like, but could have that happened? Whereas in the first movie, I feel like everything, maybe except for the gutting and the hanging of Casey at the start, was plausible in that universe, you know? Whereas this time I feel like there was a lot more far-reaching stuff that didn't make a lot of sense. Like, do you feel that way as well?
A little, yeah. I think what it was at the same time. Whilst it's a ballsy move, I think it's also maybe what he was doing there was trying to have the whole unsettling part of like that sense of helplessness, and not even in a crowd of people are you entirely safe there. Like you've got everyone just not paying attention. Like, you've got that one person who kind of goes, "Oh," and sees the blood but doesn't do anything. It's kind of, what's this?
Well, that's another
It
question
is a
I
little
have.
less realistic though.
That's another question I have. Americans, if you're watching this, maybe you can chime in and tell us. Is that literally how wild it is in cinemas over there? Because I know that it's wild over there and people clap and cheer and talk and laugh. And it's more of like it's more like over the top and fun going to the cinemas where you guys live compared to coming to Australia, where no one claps, no one jumps up, no one's in costume, no one's running around with their mates going, "I stabbed you, bro." I don't know if you heard that when they're out in the lobby. Did you hear that? I thought that was so funny, dude, because it was your classic, like, "Oh, I'm going to stab you, bro." "Nah, dude, I'm going to stab you, bro." I thought that was so funny, man.
Yeah.
Like, these college students. Like, "Nah, dude," you know? So, like, I don't know. Is that how it is over in the theaters there? Because I do feel like it's more of like a embellished way that you guys might go to the theaters for a premiere of a horror movie that everyone's really interested in. I don't feel like it would be that chaotic, but if it is, well, then I take back everything I said, because if it was that chaotic and you wanted to stab someone in the cinema and there's everyone pretending to stab each other and shit, I wouldn't have a clue that happened either, that it was real. You know what I mean? And the other question I have for you guys is, if it is that wild at the cinemas and a girl gets up on the stage and is bleeding, how can you not think that that's still a part of it? Because the moment that everyone sees her bleeding, everyone stops and takes their masks off and looks like, what's shocked and things like that. So, like, what made that part of her standing doing that separate from what was going on in the theater already and made everyone stop? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are the questions I have. And yeah, are they too deep to be thinking about for a movie like this? Indeed. Are they? Am I thinking way too much into every aspect of these movies? Definitely. But that's what we're trying to do with these movies, is review them and dissect them and discuss them in depth. And I just have a lot of questions of the looseness of how these things happen and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, I love the movie. I really enjoyed it. As I said, the first half, I love. I feel like the reveal at the end is really cool. I feel like the killing of the boyfriend was a bit harsh. I really like Jerry O'Connell. That's his name, yeah. He's awesome. He's a great dude as well. Like, he's just a normal, average dude who barely acts anymore. Does a few things here and there. But I saw an interview with him just this year on the Kind of Funny podcast, and they interviewed him, and he was like standing out in the middle of a park barefoot with no shirt on, talking for an hour, and they were like, they're a video game show sort of thing, and they're talking about like video games with him, and he said that his wife nearly left him because he was playing Call of Duty that much that at 2:30 in the morning he was standing up playing, screaming, "No! Fucking no!" at the TV, and they just had a baby. So the wife's like, "Jerry, shit!" Like, you know what I mean? He was like, "So I gave away my console and like stopped playing because it was a real problem for him and stuff like that." So he seems like just a funny, down to earth sort of now C grade, B grade actor that doesn't get a lot of work. But I think he really nails it. Did you know that he got the role because of that scene where he just gets up on the table and sings that horrible song off key?
Really?
He did that in auditions, and that's why he was hired, apparently.
That's actually another scene that I don't like. It's like,
I hate it.
you have to.
And that's what I mean, man. With this movie, I feel like there's more scenes I cringe at, don't like, than in the first movie. And that's why it falls short for me being better than the first, in my opinion. I think as like a slasher movie, it's great. As a sequel, it's great. But I just don't feel like it lives up to what Scream 1 introduced and did, you know? I also don't like Randy as much in this movie as the first movie. I find him a little bit more confident and sure of himself. Like that scene where Sydney and him just come out of film class, or he comes out of film class and Sydney and him are talking and walking, and he does that weird British accent for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
And there's actually one bit there that I reckon at the sorority party that takes you kind of away from Randy. It's in a way it's clever what they did, like he kind of breaks his rule, but at the sorority party how he kind of rocks up and he's like, "Where have you been?" And he kind of looks all bashful. It kind of, to me, that implied that maybe he was off getting a blowjob like the sister suggested, and
Yep.
is breaking the sex rule. He's the next one to die or soon to die. But to me, it could have been another character. I don't think Randy, as you said in the last one, he's a dude that should never make it to the end with the girl, like,
Yep.
and is always awkward and not that confident. And I agree with you. He was less Randy in this movie.
He was, and that weird accent he does anyway, where he's like, I don't know, it's probably just because of this and blah blah. And he does it. It's not just one little line. It's like it's a couple of lines, you know. And then he just cuts back. I was watching an interview with Jamie Kennedy about that actually, and he said the goatee was actually his choice. He didn't. Wes Craven didn't ask him to do that. He chose it. He said he was trying to make Randy more college cool. And I feel like that's the direction you don't take Randy. I feel like he was so lovable in the first movie and like worked at the video store and knew his shit about movies. And then at the party, he's like even like watching movies and explaining to everyone and then like telling them the rules. And then you want to get a beer? And he's like, yeah, grab me one. And he's like, I'll be right back. You're like, see, there goes a dead man. There goes a dead man. Like he's way more likable in this movie because it feels like everyone around likes him. But where in this movie, I feel like he's just more weird against Sydney. He doesn't act like he did in the first movie towards Sydney with that British act. He kind of treats Sydney like she doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
And he seems more sure of himself and less wrapped in around Sydney. And I don't think that was the right direction. I think he should have still been chasing Sydney and, you know, I feel like that should have been a following sort of story from the first one, that just continued. And I do think that killing Randy off in this movie was a shit choice too.
Yes, it was an interesting, character to kill off, especially the way they did.
And I also got to say, that limp the Dewey's putting on, that fake ass limp he's putting on, it's so terrible, man. It's so bad. I don't know why that was a decision because at the end of the first movie, we don't know anything about him like losing the ability to walk properly. We know he got stabbed. We know the last thing you see of him on the first movie is him getting rolled out on the stretcher and Gail like, I'll come to the hospital too. And he's like all drugged out. Oh, Gail. We didn't need him to come on and do a cripple walk that looked terrible. You know, he could have showed scars instead. He could have been like, oh, I've lost feeling, but he didn't need to walk like that. And it kind of gets on my nerves seeing him like do this fake ass hobble through the whole movie. I can't remember in Scream 3 because we're going to be watching that soon and reviewing that next week. I don't know if it's as prevalent in that movie, but I almost feel like it isn't. I feel like the limp's still there, but it isn't as over the top and I'm hoping in the new movie Scream 2022 that he just doesn't walk with the limp anymore. It doesn't need to. Like I can't actually remember as well if in Scream 4 it was completely dropped or he walked like that as well because in Scream 4 he's the sheriff of the town. He takes over as a sheriff, I believe so. And in the new movie it looks like he's a retired sheriff. So I mean this is spanning his whole career. Surely he doesn't walk like that for the rest of his life. And I don't know why that choice was made, man, because it just makes him look weird. And the other thing I have to say about Dewey is that theme song that plays behind him all the time.
Yeah.
I hate it, man. I hate it.
He was less. One thing I did like about him is he was less cartoony.
He
Apart
was
from
less
the
cartoony.
terrible, but he was less of a cartoon character.
I like him a lot more in. Actually, no. I think I like him in the first movie more because he is living at home with his mum still with Tatum, eating the ice cream with the cop. Like, you almost feel like he is innocent and cool, innocent and like sort of, you know, bashful and sort of thing. And in this movie, I still feel like he's portraying the same character, but I just feel like it's lacking a lot of the charm that he had in the first one that made him sort of like, oh, he's a goose, but you like him. You know what I mean? In this movie, he acts a lot different. What do you think of Gail in this movie, like Courtney Cox in this movie, compared to the first one?
I don't know. I don't really have too much of an opinion one way or the other. I think she's less of a bitch, which I think she's got a bit of character evolution there, which I don't mind. Like, yeah, she's
The decision of her hair, though, I got to say, way better.
yeah.
I like her hair a lot in this, and I like that she wears a tight white shirt.
Yes.
I'm a dude, okay? I'm a dude. What do you want from me?
One thing I dislike is all the bloody fourth wall breaks to Friends cast members. It's like, I get it. It's Courtney Cox. Shut up.
And the other thing I have to say about her is, did we really need another punch from Sydney to her face again?
No.
We didn't. We didn't need that at all. Like, I almost felt like that was put in just as a throwback to the first movie and being like, remember how much these guys hated each other? Well, there's still that turmoil, but I feel like they could have presented that turmoil in a different way rather than just repeat the same thing. And apparently that line that her roommate says after she hits her, where she's like, did you get that on film? And then her reporter, the new Kenny, goes, yes, I got that on film. Apparently that was all ad-libbed as well. And what's cool, what I love, I'm glad I remembered this. What I love about her new camera dude is he's a black African-American guy. He's an African-American guy. And he does, apparently he was supposed to die in this movie. And he said to Wes, why am I dying? Like, as a black person, as an African-American, I would just leave. And Wes goes, well, what do you want to do then? He goes, I want to leave. And Wes goes, well, how do you want to leave? And he goes, in a cab. So Wes called a cab to the set and he left.
That's awesome.
So he chose to leave the movie because he's like, listen, you white folk are the ones that get killed. Like, us black folk, we get out of there. We run. Yeah. We're not going to stick around if there's a killer on campus. We're out of there. So I like that was Wes let that happen rather than making him die. And I like that choice was made to show that, because, you know, it's a stereotypical thing that most black people think, which is, and white people, you know, and I'm not meaning this in a racist way or a generalization way, but most black people do say, like, the black dude's always the first one to go or the second one to go. And I'm glad that this movie slaps that idea in the face and says, no, we're going to go with the idea that portrays that race of people the most, which is they're all like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? And I like that choice. So, and I really like him too, where he's just like complaining the entire time. He's like, you know, I just read that your old cameraman got his throat slit. Why don't you tell me this stuff, man? Like, he's like not wanting to be there the entire time, you know? And Gail's throwing like, you have to do this. If you want to get hit the big time, this is what you have to do. And I really like that they didn't just let him fall into a stereotypical role and let him portray the way he thinks his people and his, you know, skin color culture, like he's, you know, he's the black community, the way that they react in a situation like this, you know. So I am really glad that was a decision that was made, and that because I really like him in this movie. So it was nice to see someone walk away and be like, see yous, and walk away and you're like, At least in real life, you know, at least
Smartest man possibly of the franchise.
exactly. And
I also like it as well that once it's all done with as well, he comes back. It's like,
yep. He's like, it's over now. I can come back and try to make it big
It's
again.
sick.
I love that. I do feel like he is better than Kenny in the first movie because I feel like Kenny's not anything special. It's more how the dynamic between Gale and Kenny that makes Kenny like funny and sort of he's the butt of the joke in that movie. Whereas I feel like this guy added an element to like that relationship between cameraman and Gale where Gale was trying to push him around and shove him around just like Kenny, but he wasn't falling for it. So I felt like it was a bit better. Like he kind of, you know, goes, oh, I guess so at the start when the first things, but when it gets worse and worse, he's like, I'm getting the fuck up out of here. And I just really think that was a really good decision to make for that character. So
Absolutely.
And before we sort of, you know, start wrapping things up, I just want to get like some of the things you really hated about this movie that we haven't spoken about.
The film references again, kind of done like the whole scene. Now they're going on about sequels, and it's like, we get it. It's a sequel. Will it be better? We don't know. And those two scenes, the singing on the table scene, just it was tacky. Like, and the theater scene, the one we were talking about before, where she's going insane and the ghost face isn't really there, or is he? It doesn't go anywhere. There's no point to it. It's a waste of 5 minutes. It just slowed things down for me.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of other cool things I noticed though, like that I liked was the throwbacks, like Tori Spelling playing Sydney and Mickey when he's unmasked. He's like, surprise, Sid. And it's like another throwback to Stu. And another really cool thing that I had to actually look up afterwards, because I'm like, was that him? In the sorority party scene, in the very background, Matthew Lillard is in it. And he hugs Mickey.
Yes,
it's like this,
I remember that. Yes.
And it's like, it
makes
me think like it was kind of like a passing the torch moment, but with the conspiracy theories now for 5 of like, will someone return? That could be a pretty cool gateway.
Well, I'm looking forward to next week on Scream 3 because you wait till you hear what the plot of Scream 3 was supposed to be, man. We'll get into that later, but that could also have been an intentional thing of him being in the background with what was meant to happen in Scream 3. And the reason it never happened in Scream 3 is because of the Columbine murders.
Oh, that will be interesting.
So that was like, there was a whole different script for Scream 3 and it was supposed to go a whole different way. And the movie, like Miramax Dimension Films, the Weinsteins, the pigs Weinstein, all thought it was a bad idea to release something that didn't have a little bit more comedic humor behind it at a time when everyone was like reeling over the Columbine thing and was like worried about violence in movies, connecting with people in schools and things like that. So the next one is going to be interesting to talk about because maybe that's why he was in the background there and there was always a reason for it. Because as we said, Wes Craven always has a reason behind everything he does with these movies. And if he threw him in the background, that has to have meant something. We won't go into what Scream 3 was going to be about or anything like that now, obviously, because, I mean, I haven't watched it. Again, first of all, I want to watch it more. And as much as I know all these details about Scream 3, there's a lot I don't know. I just am very well sort of like I've learned a lot in the last, since we started talking about Scream and I've fallen back into it and sort of thing. I've already done a lot of research on every entry in the series. So I know for a fact that Scream 3 was completely meant to be a different movie. One other thing I want to ask, like, how into it would you be to see an actual stab movie?
That would be cool. That would be cool. There
are videos on the internet, on YouTube, you can look up where it tells you the plot for each stab movie, up to like stab 7. Because I actually kind of go over that in the future movies. I believe that there's like time travel in one of them and stuff, and everyone bags that out in the world of, you know, Scream. So there's terrible movies in that franchise like Stab, as well as great movies that everyone loves. But yeah, I mean, I love that Heather Graham was playing Casey at the start of Stab in the cinema when they were watching, and I love how that lame as line she says, where she says on the phone, she goes, "You know, I don't know who you are, but I already don't like you. I already mislike you already," or something like that. So cheesy. And the other thing I want to know is, with as much as it's just like a throwaway gag sort of thing that she's playing Drew Barrymore's character and like they've gotten the footage and stuff, like I do feel like it was too close to the actual events to be that way in a movie. You know what I mean? Like if they were making a movie, how did they get it so perfectly like that's what happened? You know what I mean? I'm sure that we saw things in the first movie with that attack and stuff that no one ever knew. Like no one knew what he was saying on the phone.
Yeah.
The "do you like scary movies" thing and all that. How would have they known that happened? Because she's dead. They're both meant to be dead. Did someone have a transcript of what was going on the conversations on the phone? Like back then, there was no phone recording thing. Like it's not like it's just hard to explain. It was a different time. So like for us to know exactly, like for the writers of Stab to exactly know what was said on those phone calls, that "do you like scary movies? What's your favorite scary movie? Blah blah blah," seems a little far fetched to me, because how would they found that out? Even the police wouldn't have known what was said on the phone. I know.
Point.
Again, am I reaching too far? Yes, but that's what this is
You
for.
should do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing we will add on to this as well, which is once this is done, we like Scream. Once we get through to Scream 4, and maybe we'll add in a section into Scream 4 where we do talk about the timeline of Stab and the events that happen in those Stab movies a little bit more deep, because I don't want to go too far into it, because then we're jumping ahead by a lot in the movie universe sort of timeline. Because Scream 3, believe me if I'm wrong, is set around the filming of Stab 3, maybe?
I think so. You're right.
Yeah, so it's a bit early to jump into the timeline and the sort of layout of how those movies go. But I think that that'd be an interesting thing to sort of do sort of like a sub rank thing where we like rank the Stab sort of the plot. We rank each plot of each Stab movie in order of what we think's cool as well, just as a fun side thing. It's not going to be a proper thing. We just talk 10 15 minutes about the Stab movies and say which ones we thought sounded stupid and which ones we would be like, hey, that's actually a cool premise for not only a Stab movie but maybe even a Scream movie itself. I'm really interested to also see how much Stab is a thing in the new Scream.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering what direction they're going to take this, because let's remember, this is the first one that Wes Craven is directing. This is the first one in the new trilogy, I've been told, by, I think it's Spyglass, who bought the rights. I'm not 100% sure. Let me quickly check that before we say that. But a movie company bid and won the rights to Scream. That's why we're getting a new movie. I think that in the new movie that this will be, I feel like this next movie that's coming out will be Sidney Prescott's last, Dewey's last, Gale Weathers' last. I feel like this is like their send-off. And I feel like we're going to get the younger cast in this movie are going to kind of continue it on into the next ones. That's just a guess, but I do feel like it's becoming a bit much now, like this many movies. Like, how many times is this going to happen to Sidney Prescott? You know what I mean? So it kind of loses its like the believability the more and more this goes on. It's the same thing with Laurie Strode from Halloween. Like, how many times is this going to happen to Laurie Strode? So let me have a quick look. It's owned by Spyglass Media now, who purchased it. So it was Dimension / Miramax with the Weinstein Company. And now it's the first addition into Spyglass Media's version of Scream. So I wonder how far they're going to go into the whole movie rule. I know there are rules. We've seen on the trailer. Dewey says it again, but I just want to see them take a whole new spin on this series because, especially after watching the second one, and I know we've got a third and a fourth to go, I do feel like the whole movie thing is really wearing thin, and I'm getting sick of it. So I really hope that that's not a huge thing. But I do think that it will be a thing of it, and I do think that Stab will be in it. But how much, I guess we'll have to see because I think Stab becomes more and more prevalent as a plot driver than it has already in the first two. The further we go into the movies. So with that, we're going to kind of wrap up this episode. I'm going to personally rank it under number one. I like Scream 1 better. I don't know where it's going to go at the end in your rank. Just to let everyone know, we're not going to do an official ranking of these movies and give you a list on screen of where we go with our movie choice until the very last episode. So until after Scream 2022, we've seen that and we do the review. In that review, you will get our finalized ranking of these movies. But it doesn't make much sense to really put a proper rank on them yet because we haven't even had a chance to do the other movies yet. So just as a rough rank, I'm thinking I'm going to go, this is number 2 so far, obviously. But out of the 2, this is number 2. And you're going to go that it's number 1 for you, I'm guessing.
I'm actually going to change it up. I'm going to stick with you because after some of the points you made, I think I'm going to agree. I think it's great and it's a bee's dick difference, but I'm going to put that below the first one.
I agree. I think that's a good decision, man, because all in all, as I said, it was a rush production and I feel like it suffered a lot from that. And I also do think that it does have too many, but that would never be able to happen moments in it or whatever, you know. And I also don't like Mrs. Loomis as a villain in it as much as I like Billy and Stu together as a villain. You know, I like Mickey, but I don't find Mrs. Loomis that appealing. And I also find it very weird that there was no mention of Mrs. Loomis much really in the first movie, showing her upset or anything, or showing, you know, her reaction. I think it was kind of just felt like her addition to it was very out of nowhere.
Yeah, thought up at the line. And I mean, with Hallie initially being the killer, maybe she was just kind of slotted in because they had to put something in there.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree, man, and I'm glad that we came to that. But at the end of this, look, we are going to rank them, and I was deciding how we were going to tackle this because I'm sure that me and Alan are probably going to differ in some of our choices. And I'm thinking at the end we will rank them, and we will do individual ranks, and you will get to see both ranks on screen next to each other, Tom's rank, Alan's rank, and underneath you'll see the list. And then if you have a problem with any of our ranking, you have to take it up with the person who's ranked it where it is. But I also feel like next week's episode, the one that most people are going to be wanting to wait for because universally, I feel like Scream 3 generally is looked upon as the worst in the series. I don't know how you feel about in your memory comparing it to Scream 4, but I know that there's some people out there that think Scream 4 is the best one since the first. And there's people out there that think it's the worst as well. So it's going to be interesting because we're coming up to the sort of interesting part to the review, which is Scream 3, Scream 4, and the new Scream.
Yep. This is where it gets tasty.
Yeah, and I'm sure that some of you are going to be punching computer screens if we put this lower than Scream 3. So, hey, it could happen. So be prepared. You know, things go strange when Ghostface is involved, you know? So anyways, we hope that you enjoyed this review of Scream 2 in our Ranked and Reviewed series, a special limited series. And we hope that you are looking forward to next week's because I certainly am looking forward to next week's. And next week's will be up the same time and day as this week, every Tuesday, 7:30, up until we finish the movies. And the timing of the fifth one, I'm not sure how the new one's going to time into our schedule. I don't know if we're going to finish much earlier and we're going to have a break till the fifth one, or if we're going to finish around the same time as the 5th one, so it'll not miss a week. I have no idea. We have to look it up properly, but I do feel like there will be a little bit of a break in between the 4th and the new review, just because of we're waiting for it to hit cinemas. But we promise you that me and Alan are going to go see it together. We most likely will try and see it opening day so that we can get that review up the day after the movie, no matter what day it is. The day after that movie hits, we're going to try and have the review up so that everyone's, able to check it out if they want to. Remember not to check these out if you haven't seen these movies yet. This is spoiler packed. Like, we ain't holding anything back. So it'd be cool if you haven't seen them and you're enjoying watching these. We're sorry for spoiling shit for you from 25-year-old movies, but that's just the way it goes. But try to keep up with us. How about you watch Scream 3 during the week? That way you can keep up and you can kind of join in on the discussion too. Again, thank you for watching. Alan, thank you for doing the episode and being a part of it. And we will see you for Scream 3 in our ranked and reviewed series next week. Look after each other, everyone, and we already miss you. What's your favorite scary movie?
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hi Sydney, coming up on nighttime Sydney. It's me on your line, say bye-bye Sydney. Your little boyfriend gave me side-eye Sydney. Turn his white t-shirt into tie-dye Sydney. Riding through your hood, see my knife shine Sydney. Better ghost face, say bye-bye kidney. It's been a long night cause I sliced right shibby. Brian Michaelsboro high, lost some nice guys. Give me all the fame cause my name makes your spine feel tingly. I was high in my suicide ride, but I really want a homicide. Try me and lose your life quickly. Paint white walls, red school halls like Da Vinci. Since we wanna spit bars, I'm a chimney, give the whole room smoke. Girl, a joke, gas penny, I'm a wise guy, eyes low. Under this 20 ghost mask, ghost face.